All right, talking about chapter 5 of Douglas Robinson becoming a translator, the one thing it sort of brings to mind for me is this distinction of the three terms abduction, induction, deduction. I think it's quite useful to be able to think about that. So let's start with abduction, where basically it's a bit of a wild guess. So you see something, don't know what it is, but probably must mean that, right? Something, I mean, that happens. By the way, sometimes you get a text, there's a word in there, no one knows what the bloody hell that word is. Probably a typo, but it may not have been. I mean, who knows, right? So sometimes you do just have to completely guess. You need to keep that to an absolute minimum. Best thing would be to talk to the client, and you've got to understand time frames and deadlines and what they're expecting you to do and what would happen if it was wrong and what would happen if it was right and various other factors. But sometimes translating by omission is the correct approach. Sometimes you use it with caution, but a good translator will use every single strategy on the table. They won't avoid it because it's a bit scary. If you need to do it, then you do it. But you shouldn't need to do it too often, hopefully. The next one is induction, which is the example that comes to mind is, imagine if you're translating a Chinese birth certificate and the name of the town they were born is slightly illegible. And you can read that the character says Shen, and then the next one can't really read it clearly, right? You've spoken to them on the phone and you know they've got a northern accent, and you know they live in Dalian, city of Dalian. You can kind of guess or induce, probably says Shenyang, because that's the sort of major city up there where that accent comes from. Still a guess, but it's better than just randomly just guessing anywhere beginning with Shen or putting Shen illegible. I mean, it may be the right thing to on a certified translation. I would write Shen illegible and then probably put a comment. May well be Shenyang, but in reality, depending on the job, depending on what the client needs, sometimes you can use kind of other logical experience to kind of induce this the correct term. And then finally, there's deduction, which is even more kind of confident than induction, where, okay, well, it says Shen something, and I'm going to look under a microscope, and I'm going to use a whole bunch of other tools, and there's 3 drops of water on the left of the character, and I've Googled every town where there's 3 drops of water on the left of the character, and it's only Shenyang, or I don't know, you know. Where you've kind of gone that extra level of certainty by doing some extra kind of research. There's a guy who came out to give us a quote for fixing our boiler, and he just sort of looked at it and went, okay, 400 quid, mate. And then I got British Gas out and they looked and they said, right, to give you a price, I'm going to measure this, I'm going to tape up that photo of this and that. And at the time, I thought, wow, British Gas are much better. You know, they're actually they're not giving me a price that they're then going to renege on. But then talking to the other plumber, he said, look, I've done probably 1,000 of these, and I know if I quote you 400 quid, sometimes it will cost me 300, sometimes it will cost me 500, but normally it will cost me 400. I'm 90% sure, and the extra hour figuring out the price isn't worth the extra time. You know, it'd be easier for me to just quote you 400 and live with it, and if I lose a bit of money, I lose it, and if I make a bit more money, good. And in fact, the quote came out the same as for British Gas, so there you go, interesting. And that's an example of where your sort of experience in the long haul actually is almost as good, or can be good, but use it with caution. All the normal ethics apply. All right.